I still think about that drive every time October rolls around. I wasn't planning to be out that late, and I sure as hell wasn't planning to take the Quarry road. But when you grow up around these mountains, shortcuts become habits, even the ones you promise you'll never take again. It was Halloween night. The town had already gone quiet. Porch lights off, candy wrappers caught in the wind. I'd stayed late at my cousin's place, helping him fix a generator that had been sputtering since the first cold snap. By the time I left, it was close to midnight, and fog was already starting to roll down from the ridges. You could see it folding over the trees, moving like breath. I should have gone the long way. The main road stays lit for a good 10 miles before it curves into town, but the fuel gauge was lower than I liked, and the Quarry road cut straight through the valley. Half the distance, half the time. That's what I told myself anyway. The turnoff looked darker than I remembered. No streetlight, no sign. Just the gravel popping under my tires and my headlights, cutting through the white fog. The first mile was nothing but trees. Tall, narrow trunks, packed so tight they made the light feel weaker. Then the road dipped, and I saw the water. The Quarry had flooded decades ago when one of the walls gave in. Locals used to swim there until a kid drowned, and after that, the county stopped maintaining it. Now it just sat there, a black mirror in the woods, still and cold. About halfway around the curve, I noticed a light up on the ridge, a faint orange glow. At first, I thought it might have been someone camping, or maybe a bonfire. But as I got closer, I could make out the shape of a roof behind it. I'd forgotten there were houses out there. Old mining cabins, maybe. This one looked small, slanted, light flickering in the window like from a fireplace. There shouldn't have been anyone living that close to the pit. Then, as I passed the drive, I caught something else. Another light, smaller, near the ground. It blinked twice, like a flashlight. I slowed down without even thinking, rolled the window halfway, and listened. Nothing. Just the idling of the engine and the faint drip of water somewhere down the hill. I told myself it was probably kids. Halloween night, rural town. Somebody daring someone else to sneak up near the Quarry. But the light had stopped moving. It stayed right there, halfway between the trees, steady and low. I don't know why, but I felt like it was pointed straight at me. I eased off the gas, thinking about calling it in, then laughed under my breath. Call in what? Hi, Sheriff. Someone's holding a flashlight in the woods. There wasn't even a bar of signal out there. Still, the feeling didn't go away. That itch at the base of my neck. Like when you're walking down an empty hallway and swear someone's behind you. I decided to turn around, tell myself I'd done the smart thing. Problem was, there was nowhere wide enough for a U-turn. The road narrowed to one lane with a drop-off on the right and the slope of the hill on the left. I drove another quarter mile, and that's when I saw the house again. It was closer than it should have been, right off the shoulder now, not up on the ridge. A small single-story sagging roof, windows covered with boards except one, where a faint light still glowed. The front door was open just enough, creaking softly. There was a truck parked outside. No plates, no lights, just sitting there like it hadn't moved in years. I stopped a little ahead, killed the engine, and waited. I don't know what I thought I was going to see, but I couldn't make myself drive off. The night had gone too still. No crickets, no frogs, nothing. Even the fog seemed to pause in the trees. Then I saw movement. Not big, just a flicker behind the window, a shape crossing the glow. I leaned forward, squinting. Someone was in there. The light went out. My stomach dropped as that small, stupid motion felt heavier than a scream. I started the engine, wheels slipping on the gravel, headlights swinging wild as I fought the steering back onto the road. As I drove off, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The light in the window had come back on, brighter this time. I didn't look back again. The next morning, I tried convincing myself I'd imagined it. The fog, the long drive, the tricks of headlights in the mist. But that image wouldn't leave me. That open door, that light snapping off the moment I looked. So, the following day, I went back. Middle of the afternoon. Sun out, sky clear. The quarry looked smaller in daylight, the water flat and grey. I followed the same curve, half expecting to see the house gone. But it was still there. Roof caved in on one side, porch leaning, front door hanging by one hinge. No truck, no light, just wood, splinters, and empty air. I parked and stepped out. The ground smelled like iron and rain. When I got to the porch, I saw the boards, warped, rotted. Inside, the floor was dirt. There was no furniture, no fireplace, no sign anyone had been there in years. Then I noticed the walls. They were covered with nails, hundreds of them, hammered in uneven lines, each one holding a photograph. Most were bleached from moisture, colors gone. But a few near the back still had shape. Cars, all kinds, sedans, trucks, different plates, different years. Everyone parked on that same stretch of road by the quarry. The last one wasn't faded yet. It was my truck, taken from behind last night. My throat went dry. I stepped back, almost tripping over a loose board. The whole place felt colder than outside, like the air had been left sitting there for decades. I didn't stay long enough to think, just turned around and walked out. When I got back to the road, I looked once more at the water. Still calm, still black. You couldn't see the bottom. You never can in those quarries. They just drop, layer after layer, until the light disappears. I drove straight to town and didn't tell anyone what I'd seen. Not my cousin, not the sheriff, not even my dad, when he asked why I looked pale as a sheet. It didn't feel like something to talk about. It felt like something you keep quiet, like a secret the land itself told you, and you don't repeat. A few weeks later, I was driving that way again in daylight, heading to a job site a few miles over. When I reached the curve, there was a barrier, fresh concrete, chain link fence, and a sign, road closed, sinkhole risk. No mention of the house, no mention of anything. But when the wind shifts in October and the fog moves low over the ridge, sometimes I still see a faint orange glow between the trees. Never bright enough to show what's inside, just enough to let you know it's still there. The house beyond the quarry, waiting for someone else to slow down. I don't know why I still think about that night. Maybe because it felt so ordinary at first. Just another late drive through the middle of nowhere. Another cheap room. Another few hours of pretending to rest before the next morning. But sometimes, I think it was how quiet it was that made it stick. There's a kind of silence that isn't peaceful, the kind that hums, the kind that feels like you're being listened to. It was Halloween, but I wasn't celebrating. I'd been on the road since sunrise, moving inventory for a small electronics supplier out of Asheville. 12 hours, 3 deliveries, and I'd missed dinner by a few states. I wasn't supposed to drive that far, but the interstate was blocked by an accident, so GPS rerouted me through a state highway I'd never taken before. Long, flat, lined with abandoned gas stations and half-lit billboards. By the time I passed the town limit sign for Hollow Creek, my dashboard clock said 11:37 p.m. There wasn't much of a town. A diner, a church, and a motel with a flickering neon sign that read, Hollow Motel, vacancy. I remember thinking that even the name sounded empty, but I was tired enough not to care. The office door was propped open with a trash can. A single bulb buzzed over the counter, turning the air a dirty yellow. There was a bell on the desk, so I pressed it once. Nothing. Pressed again. After maybe a full minute, a man came out from the back room, half-buttoned shirt, eyes unfocused like I'd just woken him up. He didn't say hello, just grabbed a key from the wall and slid it across the counter. Room 9. I handed him $40 and tried to make small talk, asked if there was a vending machine. He didn't look at me when he said, "Don't go out after midnight." I laughed a little, thought he was joking. He wasn't smiling. Outside, the air felt colder than it should have been. The parking lot stretched out in front of the building, lined with identical doors and numbers half peeled from the paint. Room 9 was near the end, beside a soda machine that hummed loud enough to fill the silence. When I unlocked the door, it stuck halfway, like it hadn't been opened in a while. The room smelled faintly of bleach and dust. There was a bed, a lamp with no shade, a phone on the nightstand, and a small TV bolted to the wall. The sheets looked clean but wrinkled. I told myself it didn't matter. I just needed sleep. I kicked off my boots, set my phone to charge, and turned on the TV. Static. No channels, no sound except that low hiss of dead air. I turned it off. It took me a long time to fall asleep. Maybe because the highway outside was so quiet. No cars, no wind. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed I was still driving, headlights stretching forever ahead, but the road kept looping. Same signs, same trees. Every time I passed a billboard, the letters were blank. I woke up to a soft knock. 3 taps, slow, spaced out. My first thought was the clock. Maybe I'd left my lights on or parked wrong. When I checked the time, it was 2:14 a.m. The knocks came again. Same rhythm. I stayed still, half sitting up, heart already racing. After the 3rd round, I got up and looked through the peephole. No one, just the empty walkway under the yellow light. I waited. A minute, maybe 2. Then I went back to bed. 5 minutes later, the phone rang. The sound made me jump. It was the old kind of ring. Loud, mechanical, like something from another decade. I picked up, trying to sound awake. There was nothing on the other end. I said, "Hello." No answer. I hung up and sat there for a while, staring at the phone, thinking maybe it was crossed wires, maybe the desk clerk, maybe I was overreacting. When I finally lay back down, I noticed something on the ceiling. A small hole above the bed, perfectly round, no bigger than a coin. It wasn't new. The edges were discolored, like the drywall had been patched and drilled again. It looked like the lens of a camera. I turned off the lamp and sat there in the dark. My eyes adjusted slowly, and the hole looked darker than the rest of the ceiling, as if it went deeper than it should. I thought about moving to another room, but the idea of stepping outside again felt worse. I don't know how long I sat awake. Maybe an hour, maybe 2. At some point, I must have drifted off again, because the next thing I remember is sunlight cutting through the curtain. It was morning. The room looked smaller in daylight. I checked the phone. Dead line. The TV unplugged. The hole in the ceiling gone. Not patched, not covered, just gone, like it had never been there. I packed up fast. When I got to the office, there was no sign of the clerk, no bell, just an envelope on the counter with room 9 written across it in pencil. Inside was my $40. I stood there for a minute, listening for any sound from the back room. Nothing. When I stepped outside, the sign was still buzzing above the parking lot, but the vacancy part was gone. Not unlit, not flickering, just missing entirely, like the plastic had been removed. I got in my truck and started driving before I could think too much about it. When I reached the main highway, I pulled over and checked my phone for signal. 3 missed calls from an unknown number, all between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. No voicemails. A week later, I was unpacking at home when I found the motel receipt tucked in my jacket pocket. But it wasn't the same paper the clerk had handed me. It was newer, printed, with a different name. Hollow Motel was crossed out, replaced by Creekside Inn, and the date on it wasn't this year's. It was from 1996. I called the number at the bottom, but it didn't connect. I searched the address online. Nothing recent. The only result was a small local article from 2001 about a fire that had destroyed the Hollow Motel after an electrical fault. 3 people had been staying there. 2 never identified. I don't know what I walked into that night. Maybe I was tired enough to imagine things. Maybe the building was rebuilt, renamed, rebranded. But I still remember the clerk when he said, "Don't go out after midnight," like he'd said it before. Like he'd said it too many times. Sometimes, when I drive late on long highways, I still see those old neon signs, the ones missing a few letters, buzzing in the fog. And even when I'm sure they're miles away, I could swear I see the same pattern. A single word, barely glowing in red light. Hollow. Halloween night always pulls the worst kind of silence out of rural highways. Not the peaceful kind, but that low, endless hum that rides under your tires and makes you realize how far you are from anyone. I was driving Highway 117 that night. 2 lanes, no shoulder, nothing but pines and broken billboards. It wasn't supposed to be a long trip, just an hour's drive to my sister's place for dinner. But I left late, and by the time I hit the state line, the fog had swallowed the road. It was the kind of fog that doesn't drift, it clings. My high beams only made it worse. Everything outside the windshield looked like it was wrapped in wet cotton. The GPS kept cutting out, telling me to make a U-turn in the middle of nowhere. I hadn't seen another car in 30 minutes. Then I noticed the lights in the rearview mirror. At first, just a soft glow, far back. then closer, steady, matching my speed. 2 round headlights, no high beams, no flicker. I thought it might be a truck trying to pass, but when I slowed, it slowed too. When I sped up, it kept the same distance. 10 minutes passed like that. The same hum of the tires, the same 2 lights behind me, never gaining, never fading. I told myself it was nothing. You learn not to invent fear when you drive at night. That's how you start seeing things that aren't there. But the longer it stayed, the more wrong it felt. No turn-offs, no signs, no exits, and those lights never broke pattern. It was like whoever was behind me wasn't following the road, but me. At the next mile marker, I spotted a small gas station up ahead. One of those old ones, single pump, dark storefront, only half a light buzzing above the lot. I figured I'd pull in, let the car behind pass, maybe stretch my legs. When I slowed, the lights behind me did too, then vanished completely. No turn, no retreat, just gone. The fog behind my car looked empty again, like it had swallowed whatever was there. I rolled into the gas station anyway. The pump was dead, taped off, but I parked beside it and killed the engine. The silence hit hard. No crickets, no wind, just that faint electrical buzz from the sign. The window of the station was covered in dust, but I could see shelves inside, empty, a chair tipped over behind the counter. A closed sign hung crooked in the glass. Probably for years. I stood there for a minute, listening to my heartbeat in the dark. Then I heard something. Faint, metallic, echoing. Not behind me, not inside. From down the road. A slow, rhythmic sound, like metal dragging across asphalt. I couldn't see anything through the fog, but I could feel it. The vibration through the ground, the air shifting with every pull. I got back in the car, locked the doors, and turned the key. Nothing, not even a click. The dashboard lights stayed dark. I tried again, still nothing. The fog outside pressed against the windshield like it wanted in. Then the headlights came back. Not behind me this time, in front of me. They blinked on, 2 perfect circles in the white air, about 30 feet ahead, cutting through the fog. I couldn't see the shape of the car, just the lights, no engine noise, just those lights glowing steady, suspended like eyes. I grabbed my phone. No signal. The battery was at 2%, screen dim. I thought about honking, yelling, anything to prove someone else was really there. But I didn't. Something about it felt deliberate. The silence, the lights, the timing, like I'd been waited for. Then one light went out. A second later, the other followed. The fog closed again. My hands were shaking so hard, I almost dropped the phone. When the screen lit up, it wasn't the home screen anymore. It was a map. The GPS had come back on, but the route was gone. I froze. The headlights were still on, weak but steady, casting pale cones through the fog. I reached for the switch, stopped, pulled my hand back, and then I saw movement. Something in the beam, just beyond the hood. A shape, low to the ground, crawling slow, dragging one leg. My heart stopped. It crossed the road and disappeared into the fog without a sound. I turned off the headlights. The darkness that followed wasn't black. It was heavy. The fog seemed to thicken. pressing in against the glass. I sat there, barely breathing, trying not to make a sound. Then, out of that white silence, a hand pressed against the driver's side window. Fingers splayed, pale and wet. No face, no voice, just that hand. And then it was gone, like it had never been there. My heart was racing like crazy. The car started on the next try. The engine coughed once and caught, dashboard lights flaring. I slammed it into drive and peeled out, tires spitting gravel. I didn't look back. When I finally made it to the main road, the fog broke apart like a curtain. Clear sky above, stars visible again. I drove until the tank hit empty and stopped at the first open station I found. The clerk looked up from his paper when I came in, eyes tired. "Long night?" he asked. I nodded. He pointed at my windshield. "You hit something?" I frowned, went back outside. There were handprints all across the glass, dozens of them, smeared in dirt. They were not there when I left that gas station. I wiped them off before driving home. Told myself it was kids. Moisture. Something explainable. But last week, I had to take Highway 117 again for work. Different car this time. And when the fog came down, my GPS glitched the same way it had that night. The screen flickered once, went black, and then a message appeared. "Welcome back. Maybe the stories tonight sounded like coincidences, just wrong turns, bad timing, tired minds playing tricks. But Halloween doesn't need legends or monsters. It's the silence that gets you, the quiet decisions, to take a shortcut, to stop for the night, to keep the light on just a little longer. And that's how it all happens. One small choice, and the world shifts an inch to the side. Thanks for watching No Sleep Tonight. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps this channel grow and keep these horrors coming. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, sleep well.